Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be reading this pretty short article. So this should be a short video, and this is from the South China Morning Post. And I mean, who knows if it's actually going to be a short article, given how much I can kind of provide commentary and talk about these things. But this is an article that I thought was very important to go over, even if it is a pretty short read. And this is on why the United States needs to go down China's public transport route. And really, I feel very strongly about things like communication technology, transportation technology, infrastructure. And these are things that China is just really top notch at across the board. They're just doing such a good job, not only with the port cities, like they're not just doing that along their sea border, but they're also, for the interior of their country, creating really great communication technology, transportation technology, transport, just everything you'd want from a nation in terms of infrastructure too. They're creating all these things. And really, the United States just isn't. They've had the money to do it. They've had the time to do it. They used to have the know-how in order to do it, and I don't know if they really do anymore. But the United States needs this. It's a country of people owning a car. And quite frankly, at this point, given the cost of living, no one can afford to own a car. It's just it's so sad to think where, like, if you're an expat living in a place like Philippines, you can really easily get by with $1,000 a month. Like, you can live very successfully. In the United States, you would need like at least $4,000 a month to live a decent life, because you'd have to buy a car. You'd have to pay very high cost of living expenses, such as your housing, rent. It's just through the roof. I mean, you can live in a rural area and spend $1,000 a month on rent nowadays, and then it's multiple times that living in a decent sized city, and it's horrendous. You cannot afford to live in America anymore. And one of the aspects that is a problem is the cost of having your own personal transportation and having no real decent public transportation system. I believe I remember reading that China was focusing on creating a new high-speed rail which goes 1,000 kilometers per hour. Don't quote me on that though, but I think that's what it was. It's ridiculous, the levels of advancement that China is making across every important aspect. The United States just doesn't do it because it's not immediately profitable. And that's the problem, where I know some people, particularly my libertarian friends, who are like, well, if it's immediately profitable, it'll get done in America. And that's really all that matters. Is at the end of the day, the things that matter all have like a ways of profiting from it. And that's just not the case. Things like public transportation, it's not a particularly profitable thing for any company to do. And so the very privatized market of the United States never does things like public transportation, because it's just not a profitable avenue for American oligarchs to pursue. And the US government just really doesn't do anything that the oligarchs don't want to have. And so things like public transportation just never get done in America, where China is willing to invest the money in public transportation because it means that their human capital can go all across their country to innovate, to network, to collaborate, to transport goods, all those things. And China's just willing to do that. So, okay, so I've spent near 4 minutes now, and I haven't even actually gone into the article. So let's get into the article. So the convenient subway system in big cities and the country's expansive rail network make car ownership unnecessary and exploring China easy. I think that's really good in terms of physical fitness and health too, where you don't have a ton of cars polluting the railways. You don't have a ton of car accidents. You have very safe, very clean transportation. You even can like interact with people more, because you're all like engaging on, like, you're just chatting with strangers on public transportation, things like that. In the United States, people are very individualized, and so they don't have that like just chatting with strangers type of mindset. Like, since I came to the Philippines, like, people are just so much more talkative here, so much more friendly here than in the United States. Like, in the United States, you genuinely, if you go on public transportation, if you try to talk to a stranger, if it's a female, you have to worry about being accused of sexual harassment trying to talk to them. If it's a male, you have to worry about being shot. Okay, so America is just not a functioning country anymore. Like, there's the gender breakdown, there's the hostility between people breakdown, there's the lack of trust across the board for every person with every other person. It's just horrendous. But with places like China, there's just so many benefits to public transportation, and it's synergistic with their cultural practices and their collectivistic mindset. But anyways, getting to the actual article now that we're 5 minutes into this, when traveling outside Shanghai, instead of taking a plane or driving an immensely long distance like I would have done in the US, I have taken trains. China's traditional train and high-speed rail system is sufficiently developed, quick, and very convenient. My return to the US after spending so much time in China has made it obvious that the US should take a page out of China's book and invest massively in public transportation. And again, I've talked about the reasons why that's not going to happen, why that hasn't happened. The United States literally just has a money printer where they print money and it just creates value out of thin air just because they are the global reserve and trade currency. And they still haven't done it because they just don't care about anything that can't be used to be immediately profitable, and public transportation is not immediately profitable. Public transportation is profitable, but it's profitable to the country as a whole. And the people in charge of our country, United States, do not care about the country as a whole. They only care about their own checkbooks. They only care about their own bank accounts. And so for them, this type of thing just would never make sense. So the article goes on to say investing in public transportation can fuel economic growth in the U.S. By expanding public transportation infrastructure, the U.S. could generate millions of immediate job opportunities across construction, operation, and maintenance. But again, the oligarchs don't benefit from it, so it's not going to get done. Additionally, accessible public transport connects low-income earners to employment centers, empowering them to secure jobs they previously could not reach. This inclusivity not only boosts individual livelihoods, but also expands the overall labor force, fostering productivity and driving long-term economic growth. The cost of car ownership is a significant financial burden on American households. That's another embarrassing thing, which, yeah, I did talk about public transport as a way of saving people money, but literally nowadays, you need to have some form of public transportation because people just cannot afford to live. Poverty is so rampant in America right now. Like, people are just so massively in debt. I believe overall privately held debt, like the individual Americans, is over $1 trillion now. Like, people are just taking out so much money in order to be able to survive on a day-to-day basis. And so, I mean, they actually need public transportation because they can't afford basic living expenses anymore. Anyways, shifting towards public transport will relieve middle-class families from the hefty expenses associated with cars, such as fuel, insurance, and maintenance. This surplus income can be redirected towards consumer spending, injecting vitality into local businesses and bolstering the economy from the ground up. Okay, embracing a public transport system like China's offers a substantial solution that would help combat climate change and create a more beautiful environment. Yeah, and China is just working on this across the board, trying to be as energy efficient as possible. They're doing a ton of things related to renewable energy, electric vehicles. They just really are top notch. Okay, here's a comparison I would love you to think about. I don't think there's any time in the United States where the bigwigs, the influential actors within the United States, sit in a room and say, what can we do to benefit the United States in the long run and make sure it's a prosperous nation? I don't think there's a group of people that ever do that. There's a group of people, what is it, like the Bilderberg Group, World Economic Forum people, all those people, they sit in a room and say, how can we exploit the populace and extract the resources as much as possible? And if things ever get bad for us, we could just flee the country and go to Israel because they have the right to return there because they're Zionists. But they do that, but they never actually sit in a room and say, how can we benefit the country and make it a prosperous country? Because they're cosmopolitan. They're rootless cosmopolitans that do not care about the populace of the country. You can see that definitively given their consistent actions across multiple generations that these oligarchs have been in charge. Okay? Whereas in China, I definitively think that at least every few years, because they do come up with 5-year plans, they sit down and think, how can we benefit the country? How can we make it a successful country in the short, medium, and long term? And when they think about that, they say, okay, we need things like public transportation, we need good communication technology, we need good infrastructure, we need to make sure we have energy and food independence, we need to make sure we have electric vehicles, renewable energy sources, all of these things. Like they actually plan for the future of their nation, because whenever they exploit the populace and extract their resources to the point where the people are upset with them, that's what the Westerners do. And then they just flee the country. In China, the influential people don't do that. And it's also helpful because their merchant class is separate from their political class. And it's the political class that dominates the merchant class, whereas in the West, the political class is completely subservient to the merchant class. And so there's this different dynamics there that leads to different outcomes, such as this public transportation thing. Okay, I've been talking way too long about this. You can tell I'm passionate about it, this 3-minute article. So let's kind of try to skip through some of this. A robust public transport system can profoundly improve mobility, connectivity, and overall well-being. Efficient public transports offer affordable and convenient travel options. Yeah, we kind of talked about that. Prioritizing public transport can lead to safer roads and a reduction in traffic-related accidents and fatalities. That's important. By promoting walking and active commuting to public transport stops, we can encourage physical activity, combat sedentary lifestyles, and contribute to better public health. Yeah, another thing is, in America, you have to worry about getting shot if you walk places. So not only do you have to worry about getting shot on the public transportation, but you also have to get worried about getting shot getting to the public transportation in the first place in America. I mean, I remember a couple blocks from where I lived before I moved to the Philippines, there was a drive-by shooting where people, 4 people got out of a car and just shot around everyone. And there was a home break-in the year before I got there where a person was murdered, right around that lake I used to walk on. And so it's just the United States is just not safe. Honestly, at this point, the United States has ceased to function at such a level that, I don't even think they could do public transportation, even if they wanted to, because crime is too high and people don't trust each other. People don't like each other. People just won't use it at this point because even if they could, because it's just not safe. And that's what I talk about a lot, which is the United States is going to have to collapse. Western civilization is going to have to collapse before they can reinvent themselves, because there's just too many systematic problems in the system right now. So Biden passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which totaled over $1 trillion in new infrastructure spending over a 5-year period. That'll never happen. In contrast, China has plans to spend $1.8 trillion in 2023 on large infrastructure project, a 17% increase from last year. Okay, after spending an uninterrupted 3.5 years in China, this person had their first opportunity to return home and visit family and friends in sunny South Florida. I sold my car before moving to China, so this was my first experience being back in the United States. The absurdly priced Uber trips, poorly covered bus routes, and the nuisance I caused my friends and family asking for rides made me wonder how anyone in the U.S. can live without a car. Yeah, I had to sell my car before moving to the Philippines, and wow, it was just horrendous. The cost of things like Uber, the cost of public transportation. I couldn't use a bus because there weren't enough bus routes to the airport I wanted to go to. They didn't happen frequently enough. It was horrible. It was actually cheaper in a lot of cases just to use Uber too. So this person goes on to say, during my years in Shanghai, I have never had to need to own a car. Shanghai's 19-line, 108-kilometer long subway system is an incredible way to get around. Not only has it saved me money when compared to my life in South Florida, but it also made me healthier thanks to walking more. Yeah, man, this is just, as someone who grew up in America, spent the first 30-ish years of my life in America, it's I dislike the American government. I dislike American culture. I dislike the current iteration of American civilization. I really do care a lot about the American people. I think they're very hardworking. I think they deserve better than what they're currently getting from their government, from this awful materialistic, hedonistic culture, the corruption that's occurred within academic institutions, K-12 public education institutions. It's just sad. It's sad to see, I talk about all these articles to open people's eyes to what's happening in America compared to what's happening in the rest of the world. But man, it also is a little bit sad just to see people who I think deserve more suffering so badly. So if you ever see me criticizing America and take it personally, I want you to know that I'm criticizing them for your benefit if you're an American, because they are screwing you over as much as they're screwing over the citizens of other countries that they are looking to exploit the populaces of and extract their resources. So if you found this video to be helpful, this article I provided commentary on from the South China Morning Post on why the U.S. needs to go down China's public transport route, please give us a thumbs up. It does help us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel for more content on YouTube and Rumble. Please tell people about our channel if you want to help open their eyes to new perspectives that you may not hear in American media and entertainment. We are trying to get the word out there. We are being suppressed in the algorithm. We have some solutions to that, but we do appreciate any help you can give us as well. And please leave us a comment in the comment box below. Questions, concerns, critiques. I do love reading them. I do read all of them, and I do try to respond when it's necessary. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.